It was what it was. Forget about it. I'm going to hate this. He's just a dick. Fuck that. He's not a real pirate. Me. Okie doke. Wrap up time, guys, which I need my notes, and I've just gotten in the habit of filming while I'm doing stuff because of time. But anyways, wrap up for May. That's it. Also, let me situate you and not be so blown out. One sec. Oh my god, my coffee. Wait. And we're back. Okay, so like I said, wrap up time, which if I'm being honest, you guys, I kind of feel, I've been thinking about it because I feel like I've barely read, or like I keep DNFing stuff, which you'll see when I talk about these books, but I'm like a DNFing fiend right now, and I'm not proud of it. I feel like I've actually been in like a major book slump for like a really long time, but I keep trying to push through it because I feel like I have to, because I need to do content, things like that, which is silly and stupid, but it just kind of hit me all of a sudden that I feel like I'm pushing myself too much. So I think next month I'm going to try and be like, it doesn't matter how much I read. If I read one book, it's okay. I DNF'd a lot this month, so I kind of feel like a cheater to your pumpkin eater, but you know, c'est la vie. Anyways, wrap up. So altogether, what do I have? 8 books, of which something's missing. It doesn't matter. We'll see if it comes back to my brain as we go. But at least 4 of these I DNF'd, and one of them I've started, but I haven't finished. So, you know, there's that. But for May, there was the Romance Readathon, which was amazing. Crystal hosted it for Books Forever After. And we had such a good time. It was for her birthday, and it was amazing. It was like a bingo-based readathon if you weren't a part of it. But it was all historical romance. That's what you had to read in order to hit your bingos. And I struggled. If you'd like to watch that and you haven't, it's basically my vlog. Everything was a bust. So we're just going to start there. Okay. The first one being the one I was very excited about, which was the Shades of Grey one. If you didn't see that, then this won't sound repetitive. If you did see it, maybe jump to the next chapter. But this one was literally, it was vampires. And if you look at the cover, that looks historical. Also, it looks like 1800s England. Okay, let's be honest here. There's gas lamps, there's carriages, these dukish looking, I don't know. It was the 90s. So there literally was mention of a restaurant that I've been to, and I would have been alive during that period, so suffice it to say it was not historical. But I didn't finish it because I got upset because I realized it wouldn't count, and I felt like I didn't have a lot of time because the readathon was 2 weeks, so I didn't finish it. It wasn't bad. You're put into the thick of it right away. If you're into historicals and you want to check it out, you're put into the thick of it right away, and it is kind of kooky in the sense of there's that paranormal aspect, because if you're typically reading historical romance, it's all very believable. It's not fantastical, you know? But it had that kind of kooky element. The main vampire, apparently he's a ginger vampire. So that's different. That's original. And then there's a secondary vampire who's very Italian, very Rico Suave. I like to consider him like the Casanova vampire. And both of them just have a very old world speak, which I mean, I guess makes sense because they're vampires. But it kind of made it interesting to read. I'll say it. I'll say this. Just made me realize that I am reading. I wasn't actually getting lost in it. So it was kind of neither here nor there. If I finished the book, I'm betting it probably would have been very middle ground because I could tell so much that I was reading. Probably somewhere to the 2 to 3 range. It was what it was, and I got screwed over. So I moved to the next book, which was it the Devil Earl? I think it was the Devil Earl, which was another Gothic man one, which just wasn't bad. This was a shorter historical romance, but it essentially had a girl who is an author, so she's very different for her time in the sense that she's making her own money. She's telling people that she wrote this book that is incredibly successful, which is very rare. She has spectacles, but there's this like Gothic manor that she kind of lives like below, and she's enamored with it, and that's what's given her all these ideas for the mysteries that she wants to write. And the man who actually lives there, who actually owns it, she kind of creates a character that she doesn't really realize is basically him, and society recognizes how close they are in characteristics that they kind of just assume that it's him. And they give him a hard time. So then she feels like she has to save him because she wrote this character and everyone's giving him a hard time. And he already struggles with society because this is very Beauty and the Beast. It's an interesting concept. And it was good. Honestly, I really could finish that. I should finish it. But like I said, I'm in a DNF mode, you know? But the only thing that I think kind of bugged me a little bit was our girl, like she is so enamored with him that it almost felt very teenagery, where it's like a young teenage girl just absolutely pining after an old man, and it had the teenage aspect. It's not like the longing pining that as romance readers we really like to enjoy reading, especially when the pining comes from the guy. I mean, let's be realistic. We love it when the pining comes from the guy. Okay? But it's coming from the chick. Feels kind of teenagery. So that was my only beef. But the characteristics, God, can't talk. The characters are very distinct. So I will say that. But it's a short one. So that's actually a really good historical if you want to do something quick, or if you're reading like a tome and you need something in between to kind of break it up a little bit. That could be a good one. But anyways, moving on from there. The next one, Bella and the Beast. Another Beauty and the Beast retelling because I love them. This one looked interesting. She has a tattoo on the freaking cover on her ankle. So I'm already like, well then. But this one I was excited for because it had adventure. At least it seemed like there was going to be a lot of adventure into it. And when you first start off the book, you find out that our girl is indeed an adventurer because her father basically raised her by going all over the world and being an archaeologist and exploring and all this stuff. And he ends up passing away. This is all in the beginning. Trust me. I'm not giving it away. But she ends up going back to England because he basically tells her on his deathbed that she needs to find a certain man so she can get her other half of the mummy's gold, essentially. So she goes, she tries to essentially infiltrate the Duke's castle, if you will, so she can find a map so she can go get said gold. So she becomes like a curator for him, but he's very much just an ass. If I'm being honest. In my vlog, I think I called him a right old dick. That's the best way to describe him. It's out of all the beasts that I have experienced over my years, he's just a dick. There's nothing to really make me want to like him or want to save him, if you will. So I kind of put that down right away. I got to 100 pages in, and neither one of them like each other yet. I haven't found any reason to like him yet. And to be honest, she's just kind of mediocre. Sorry. But I got bored really quick. So I'm definitely not going back to that one. But it was promising because it seemed like adventure. So anyways. Oh, crap. Okay, wait. I remember the other one. This other one I got screwed. It's this one. I don't remember the name of it. But I remember the premise. It was supposed to have a pirate. Okay, which was going to hit that tile for the bingo card. But it was a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And it's this whole premise about these families are totally against each other. You know Romeo and Juliet. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they can't be together. Okay, they shouldn't be together. They should hate one another. But she's just so pretty. It's the typical stuff. But they meet, I guess, at a party, and he's just dressed up as a pirate. He's not a real pirate. So we couldn't use that one either for the romance readathon. So I had to throw that out, okay? I was really trying to get the bingo. So, which technically I did. But anyways, that's beside the point. That was the last historical romance. Nope, it wasn't the last historical romance. I also read The Highwayman. One book I did complete. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't a huge fan. I know a lot of people liked it. I know this was a very popular book last year, and everybody who in the buddy reads who read this seemed to really, really enjoy it. But it was just kind of, I don't know, long in the tooth in the sense for me that he just hates himself and spoiler, is just really convincing himself that he's not the little boy that he was. And I was waiting for that moment for him to finally have the realization that it's okay for him to be him and she can comfort him. But that never really happened. So it didn't really end the way that I wanted for him, I guess. It is dark in the sense of what happens or what had happened to him in the past. And they mention it. You never like read it on the page, but there is a lot of stuff that happened to him that's really, really sad. And it kind of just keeps coming up. So that's what I didn't like. I kind of felt like there was this heavy weight that is just hanging over you the entire time that you're basically reading it. I felt like it was pretty obvious from the beginning who he was. So I'm just carrying that the entire time. And I guess that's what made me not really enjoy it. The first chapter is so cute and so sweet, and like it builds up this emotion inside of you as the reader that you really want them to have that happy ending and you want them to come together, and it's so sweet, just like the scenarios that Kerrigan Byrne actually wrote. Like it's just such a sweet beginning and then sad, but that weight just I think carried through too long for me. That's all. So I was just kind of like, meh. For me, it's a 3-star. Ugh. Sorry, guys. I know a lot of people said 5-star or higher. It wasn't hitting for me, man. It wasn't hitting. So, anyways, moving on from there, I read Pen Pal, which was another one that I actually mentioned in my vlog. But this was actually this was part of the traveling book stuff, and I honestly went into it thinking I'm going to hate this. I'm absolutely going to hate this because it's contemporary. I can just tell. But literally, sentence 1, I'm hooked into it, babe. It is dark romance. It is contemporary, but I enjoyed it, so I highly recommend it. But it did things I've never seen. The ending I loved. I know is going to be controversial for a lot of people, but it was different and intriguing. And there's this moment in it, like at the climax, where you realize something and you realize the author was so meticulous in how she did all this stuff in the beginning of stuff that you don't even recognize. But then you get to that chapter and it's written so well and you're like, holy crap, wait, oh my God. And then you're so emotional for all the characters to the point where I'm making my husband read it. So I really liked it. I peer pressured him into it. But I really enjoyed it. It's another favorite. It's easy 6 stars. It's when I'm going to have to compare this to Pestilence at the end of the year, forget about it. Okay, I'm going to struggle. It's so good. So flipping good. But all I'll say, if you don't know what Pen Pal is, it got picked up. I don't know, the author, she got picked up. So the ending is slightly changing a little bit. But as far as the premise goes, we basically have a woman who's just lost her husband and she's grieving, and her house is like kind of just in disrepair. So just as like she's internally in disrepair, her outer environment is also in disrepair. And she ends up calling this handyman, and he's very gruff and whatnot. Sexy. But they end up getting close, and it's kind of about her getting close to him, finding love again, and simultaneously dealing with that grief and that guilt for kind of moving on so quickly. And there's other stuff that happens that I won't go into, but that's the general premise. Okay? It is dark. Be aware of that, but it's so good. The one thing that a little bit of an issue with is I did feel like I was starting to get to a point where I'm like, okay, enough with the sex, you know? So I will say that. The story's really good. The sex's great too. But I got to a point where I'm like, okay, this is feeling repetitive. So, anywho, Pen Pal. Fantastic. Next one, House of Whispers. Jack of Ripper. I can't talk. Jack the Ripper and the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde one. Very fantastical. So excited. Love the cover. Bought it because of the cover. It's a hardback. I was jonesing for this book. This is one that we were reading together, did Buddy read over on The Void. None of us liked it. For the ones of us that did read, I didn't even fully read it, but it started off fine. Like the first chapter, I'm like, okay, I can see where this is going. I believe it's the first book. It's her debut book. So, there's a little bit of leeway that you give there. But I thought it was fine. But it kind of, it's repetitive also. It's kind of boring. It's like I said, repetitive. The same stuff kind of feels like it's happening over and over. There were some things in the very beginning that was kind of shocking, but then that's just repeated through so that it almost loses the shock value that you did experience in the beginning of it. That makes sense. But the world was really neat. The world that she created is super, super cool. I think it just needed some more refinement and just kind of give it a little bit more interest all the way through. It needs to be engaging throughout the whole book when it's kind of just, you're kind of coasting, you know? So I didn't even get to the sex scene, so I don't even know about that. But the girls were telling me that the sex scenes were kind of just boring and the same, and not something you would think for how dark the book describes itself and what the trigger warnings are, but it was what it was. So House of Whispers, unfortunately, was a little bit of a dud, and I did DNF it. Beyond that, I have 2 more. The MindF series. So we just read the first book. There's 5. This is the one that Hannah gave me, and this is a tome. She got me the one where it's like all 5 books in it, and those are, I don't know why, okay? Hear me out, guys. I mean, granted, you could just buy it as individual books, but I was starting to think about, just in a generalized sense, maybe we should do, like, you remember VHS tapes and how if it's a really long movie, there was like 2 VHSs? Why don't we, if there's like a huge book, and I'm not talking about a series because I recognize for the MindF series I could buy them individually, but like for a huge book that's just one individual book, what if we created like little ones so they're easier to hold in your hand, and maybe it can come in like a special box where it's like placed on each side like a VHS tape? I think that could be kind of cool. I don't know, like part 1, part 2 of book 1. I don't know. Hear me out. I don't know. So anyways, my mind is off elsewhere. But I read the first one, and I'm just kind of like, meh. I don't know. I want to continue on, but I think it's because I'm in this mood, this weird book slumpy mood. But it might also just because I've read a lot of dark romance lately, so the punch in the beginning was just kind of like, okay, I mean, I've heard that before. But our chick is essentially a serial killer. So when you're first introduced to her, you have no idea about that. But then like the second chapter, you find out she's going through like a brutal unaliving. Okay? So you have that moment of, oh, our chick is the bad one, and our good guy is an FBI agent. So that didn't have the same punch, and I don't know if it's because I've been DNFing stuff like crazy, or if it's just because I've read a lot of dark romance, and I'm just like, well, okay, I've heard this before. But I think the interesting thing about this is all of a sudden I was in the bath, and then I looked over at my book, and I saw the cover, I'm like, oh, whoa, this is Twilight. This has to be a Twilight retelling. It's got to be. It doesn't explain it like that at all in the back of the book, but this is way too coincidental of a cover. It really, really is. And then I was talking to Carissa, and she said that someone at her like meetup that they did in New York, she said that someone said from there that it's Rosalie's story, or like a reimagining. It's got to be a reimagining because of the time period. And there were certain things that I was putting together. I saw a lady named Carlisle, and she takes over her sort of identity, and she's now becoming like this massive killer. And our good guy, which maybe is going to be Emmett, I don't know, but there's all these guys that had essentially jumped her, and she's getting her revenge on all these men, so she's kind of taking them out slowly but surely, and the FBI agent is basically working the case, and they get close. So yeah, and the writing's not bad. The writing's really good, and it's engaging. It holds you through. They're only like 120 pages each, roughly, for each of the different books. So we'll see what happens in part 2 and stuff. We'll probably do that as a buddy read for this month. I don't even really know how to rate it, honestly. Maybe 3.5 to 4, but like again, you have to take everything with a grain of salt right now, because like my brain is just, I think it's Kaputskis up here, and I need to just take a break. I don't know. Well, so I'll read when I want to read, and again, it's okay if it's only one book. So I'll be reading more than one book though, because I'm obligated to read more than one book. So you see the problem? You see the dilemma? Anywho, the last one here, Bewitched. I have not DNF'd it, and I have not finished it, because this is something I decided to do, a Sisterhood of the Traveling Book with my sister. And this was the book that I started, but I kind of stopped it because she ended up moving, so she wasn't able to read her stuff. So I put it on hold. But this was Laura Talisa. You guys know how much I loved Pestilence. I read it earlier this year, so I was hoping this would be good too. This is one of her newer books. hated Rhapsodic. But that was early on in her career. This one, so far, is very good. It doesn't have the same depth or drama, I would say, as Pestilence, because Pestilence has a very serious note in it. And it's just very intriguing with the religious aspects. But Bewitched, so far, it is really fun and it is engaging. And you want to watch it, like, keep moving through. It is very witchy. It's basically about a witch who's trying to get into this academy, and she needs to go on essentially this discovery. It's like, I forget what it's named, but she needs to find like her soul animal. That's one thing. And then she also needs to have like a really deep experience, almost like a spirit walk, I think it's called. Oh, I'm terrible. But she ends up going into South America, and she goes through this plane crash, and she comes across, it sounds like this old god who thinks that she is his old wife, who actually is the one who trapped him. So it's about to get dramatic. We'll see how it goes. And he gets out, and he starts to follow her. And she finds her animal. I won't tell you what it was. It's not what I thought it would be, but it's badass. So I'm enjoying it so far. I will probably continue that this month now that my sister moved. So yeah, that's it. That's what I read, which when you list this all out, it seems like a lot because I've been talking for a while, which thanks for sticking around. But I only really read 2 books, 2.5 books. C'est la vie. But anyways, I will see you guys later. You have a good one. Bye.